Okay, so I said in a previous comment to one of my other posts that I would make a video showing you guys how to make my little pocket study guide. I think there was some confusion. I think some people thought this was 4 separate pages. This is actually just one piece of paper. So let me zoom out. One piece of paper so I can keep it in my pocket. It's just about scrub pocket sized. And this is better for me than carrying around note cards, or when this was actually on a Word document, it was 18 pages. So if you can't write small or you can't read small, then this is probably not going to work for you. Although you could use the back too if you have good enough paper. I had to use the back for 2 of the things on my list, but this is 32-pound paper. You can't really do that with printer paper, regular printer paper. Anyway, so I start out with my piece of paper and I fold it in half and then half again. And I have a piece of paper behind it while I'm working, because I'm going to go off the edge of the paper. I also have an index card. Sorry, because I like my lines to be straight. And you can do whatever for color scheme. I just happen to go with this green and whatever. So anyway, I'm not going to make the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of show you an idea of how I start it and how I use it. So I have a list somewhere of what I want to be in this. We were given a study guide. It was fantastic. It's very specific. So like some of the drugs, she only wanted us to know the adverse effects. Some of them she wanted to know mechanism of action, contraindications or whatever. So she gave us specific things about each drug. That's why my particular study guide isn't going to be helpful to any of you, because it's going to be missing very, very much information. My professor, bless her heart, gave us very specific things that we had to know for the midterm. We were quizzed on everything in previous tests, but I didn't do this except for the midterm. Okay, so I'm going to start in one of my corners. I find a top left corner to start on, and I hold an index card for the straight lines. So I just start writing here, blah blah blah, and I pick how much I want it to cover, blah blah blah. I want it to stop right about here, so blah 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 blah, writing. Okay, so then I stop. And this doesn't have to just be like one little piece of information. If there's, a couple things under the same topic, then I'll put them together. I think my first thing was a list of terms, and I put the terms half-life and tolerance together. And then I moved, half-life and first pass effect. And then for the next little box, I used tolerance and adjuvant therapy. And then I had like chronotropic, inotropic, and dromotropic drugs. So the point that I'm trying to make here is how I decide what goes where. So I'd make that first box, and then I draw the outline using my index card for the straight edge. And then I make the next box with a different color marker. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. It may not be the same width or whatever, so I just really like right angles, so that's just my sort of OCD. You can do this however you want, but that's how I do it. Anyway, so then I turn it. I only work with one little quarter of the paper at a time. So then I turn it, and I'm blah blah blahing up this way. Blah blah blah. So my little boxes are going clockwise around the edge of the edge of the square, kind of in, as you will see, a spiral shape, a very square spiral. So you can see I'm just starting here. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I want to give you an idea of how it went. So you can see I start here, I'm moving on, I'm turning, I'm going to go this way, my next box is here, until I get back to where I started, and then I'm going to start a next layer in. And basically I'm just going to do a big spiral until I run out of space in the middle. So to show you on the actual thing that I did, I started here and I moved down the list of things that go on my study guide, and I did the boxes in this order. And this is the last thing I did. And here's my little motivational stuff that I add. I own this midterm and will ace. Wait, I own this midterm and will get an A+. Okay, so then I just turned over to the other side, and I actually started here for this one. I did a little table for comparing the advantages and disadvantages of different routes of administration. So I started here, and then I went here, and as you can see, I'm going in that spiral again. Except here, I've already done this giant chart, so my spiral got tighter. And I just, obviously I'm not going to do teeny tiny little lines going this way, so I turn it, and so it's not always perfectly spiral, but just to get an idea of how to follow it, to make sure you're not missing anything when you use it to study, I always find the corner that's on the top left, and I turn it, and I turn it, and I turn it to make sure I get it all. And when I filled that up, I go on the inside, and I fold it back, and I think I started here on this one. So I do this again, going in a spiral until I get to the middle, this very last little part here. Then the other side, and if I still had any more stuff to do, I would go on to the inside of the paper, which at this point I only had 2 more things on my list. So I did those, but I have had exams where it filled up both sides of a paper. I've never used more than 1 piece of paper for this because I don't want to carry more. But I will say I used this for A&P 1 and 2. I used it for microbiology. This doesn't really work for critical thinking exams, but for pharmacology it's great. I have a couple examples of my pharmacology ones. This is like the first one I ever did. Yeah. Oh no, this is for microbiology. Anyway, that was the first one. They kind of evolved as it went on, and my techniques changed. But this is, for me, I just keep these in my pocket while it's time to prepare for an exam. And this one has 6 chapters. This is my favorite one. I like to look at this. Actually, this one didn't. I don't know. Where's my favorite one? Anyway, I lost it. But it's kind of the evolution of how I started doing these. And I mean, for me, this is total recall. Like I haven't prepared for a test this way since I was in microbiology. I'm now in the 2nd semester of nursing school. But I used to get 100 on every single test doing this because I would pull this out all day long for like a week solid every time I was in line at the grocery store or whatever. So one way that I can use it without constantly rotating it, I always only use just like one little piece at a time. I never ever open this thing up because you know what? That's really overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, look at all that shit. But just one little piece, I pull it out, I start here, I read everything that's facing the right direction. And then I do a quarter turn, and I do everything that's facing the right direction again. And a quarter turn, and everything that's facing the right direction. And then the last direction, everything that's facing the right direction. And that's it. It took me like 2 minutes to read this paper out loud, which is what I do. I read it out loud. And then if I have time, I'll go on and I'll do the same thing on the next one. I always start in a different place. It just kind of helps you if you can not sort of memorize a routine. You're just kind of picking it up anywhere. For me it does. It just gives me a better understanding. Anyway, sorry this is a super long video, but that's what I do. I'm not going to be taking close-up pictures of these and sharing them. I'm just sharing with you how to do it so you can do it yourself, because this is very specific to my teacher's exam and it's not going to be helpful if you try to study from my stuff. But there you go.